So this one, the interview that I signed up that you signed up for here, says that it's for IC only.
Okay.
IC is individual contributor. So if you write code more than you manage folks, this would be for that.
So you think this potential role is for managing people?
For program manager, I would think so. If you want to do something more related to PM, I would say that the behavioral interview for leadership only would be your best bet.
Okay.
Otherwise, for IC, um, the structure would be a little bit different.
So Harry,
So
I
it's up
mean
to you.
the role requirement, wouldn't it mention that you have to manage people, or is it assumed with that title?
So this isn't for the Amazon side. This is for IK here. There's two different topics for mock interviews. There's the Amazon behavioral interview leadership only, and there's the Amazon behavioral interview IC only. IC is individual contributor, and so it's for people who don't contribute, or who contribute code, and is more technical focused. If you want to do general PM, I would say signing up for the leadership only behavioral interview would be better.
Okay. What would you recommend?
Honestly,
right now,
you could just reach out to operations, let them know that you signed up for the wrong topic, and then reschedule. But if it's tight, like your interview is coming up very soon, then I would get it over with.
After tonight, I might have one more mock interview. So, I mean, I feel like if we can just make the best of what we have now, it will be helpful. Anything will be helpful at this point if you want to help. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Well, I have this time booked with you, so perfectly happy with doing an interview. But just as a forewarning, some of the stuff that I'll be, some of the feedback I'll give you that I have might not be too relevant to you.
Okay, understood.
All right. Cool. So, is this on the 6th? Is this going to be a mock, or will this be the first phone screen, or will this be a final round?
It'll be the first phone screen.
Okay. And they're just going to ask behavioral questions.
Yes.
Okay. Did the recruiter mention what sort of things they would be asking, like as an example?
Yes, the recruiter essentially said it is going to be 1 hour phone screen with a team member, and pretty much around the leadership principles is what she said. She said it's going to be around leadership principle, give your answer in the star format, have a good answer for why Amazon, and that's it.
Okay. Did they mention the role of the team member who would be calling you?
Actually, they did not. Should I? Yeah.
Okay.
Should I reach out to her and just get an idea?
I might ask.
Okay. Okay.
Just so that you have a good understanding of what kind of questions they might ask you.
Can I ask her and tell me if this is a good idea? Like what would be the preferred leadership principles they might focus on this call? Like, can I ask that kind of question?
I don't see why not.
Okay. Okay.
And some leadership principles, right, they don't really necessarily correlate to the role of program manager that well.
Okay.
So I wouldn't sweat. I wouldn't sweat. I don't think there'd be any harm in them.
Okay.
Just getting a better sense of what kind of questions you'll be asked.
Okay.
And what kind of leadership principles they'll emphasize on. Have you looked into leadership principles?
I have.
Okay. And have you written down some examples of STAR in the STAR format?
Yes, I have.
Okay. I want to make the best use of your time here. So if you're okay with it, why don't I just take a quick look at them and see what kind of examples you have, and maybe if we need any tweaking there, we'll just do a quick review.
Okay,
and then
I can do that.
afterwards I'll go through an example question and
Okay.
let you know what the rubric or what a rubric would be for behavioral interview that is focused on tech roles.
Got it. I can show you, please be warned, it is slightly rough, so you can take a look and I can quickly elaborate of what potentially is in my mind. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. Let me share my screen.
Okay, I can see your screen.
You can see my screen. So hold on. So I think this is the target. This is where I want to be. This is what I'm targeting for, where I have the list of leadership principles here and then what story resonates where. So I'm trying to put together like a table.
Okay.
This is, I am close to 28, 30. I have close to like 30 stories in my pocket, but this is a lot.
Nice.
So I feel like 3 of them are like solid, good selling stories. They make up, like, these are like my must tell stories. Like I have to squeeze them somehow in an interview.
Nice.
And I think this is where I want to be, where I like make a good elaborate star. This is where I am, where I've not done that yet, but this is where I want to reach. So I have a matrix, a solid filled out matrix, and this is how I have done it with some of my stories, but not all of them.
Okay. We can just take a look at a few. We don't have to go through each one. So let me just take a look at this one here. Going through the top 6 bullets first.
The top 6 bullets are about me. Like if they may not ask, but this is like a quick, tell me about myself. This is about myself.
Okay. So we're just going to go through here. Okay, so are you currently working in a finance role?
Yes, I'm currently working in the finance role, yes.
Okay. Maybe for the first bullet, you can mention a rough estimate about how many people you work under you.
I'm mostly an individual contributor. Informally, I have like a couple of people who work with me, but I don't have like any direct reports. That's just how it is.
Okay. This looks good. Just say for the last bullet, instead of saying what your passions are, maybe leave those out and then let your second or your third sentence convey that idea.
Okay, got it.
Because this already it would be a little redundant to have both what you want, like working on, what you're very passionate about, and then have the rest describe what you're saying. Just say that you like working on strategy, and then do the second sentence.
Okay.
And yeah, that's about it. This looks good. And so now I'm just going to look at the first question. Tell me about a time you had to deliver on a tight deadline. Okay, so since they're going over leadership principles, I would first identify which leadership principle this question is suggesting.
Would this be deliver results?
This definitely involves a result to deliver.
Okay.
Is there any other leadership principle?
Vice for action.
Yep.
Okay.
So the emphasis here is a tight deadline and being able
Yeah.
to make decisions quickly, act on those decisions quickly. So both deliver results works, but vice for action would be more closer to what the interviewer is asking for. At the end of the day, the interviewer will take notes on what you have to say. So if they're asking for one thing and you're giving them another thing, they won't be able to find as much data to collect than they would want to.
Okay, so you think it's more for vice? Okay.
Is definitely good. You don't have to identify it during the interview, verbally, but just keep that in the back of your head as you're doing as you're answering the question.
Okay.
Okay, so just gonna go through the situation here. At a bank, this is JP Morgan.
Yes.
Okay. Hurricane Harvey response team at the crisis hit and points because the impacted zip codes to understand the risk associated within 24 hours. Pressures. So is the second sentence part of your response?
Situation, context. Oh no, sorry.
Okay, you can just strike that out.
Yeah.
So during your tenure at the bank, part of the Hurricane Harvey response team. So instead of saying your tenure, you could just say that you while you were a risk reporting analyst.
Okay.
At JP Morgan. And the situation was not that you were a part of the Hurricane Harvey response team. The situation was that Hurricane Harvey hit, I forgot, was it Texas?
Texas,
yeah, okay. Okay, so you just say like, while I was risk reporting analyst at JP Morgan Chase, I had to respond to Hurricane Harvey and its effects on these several zip codes that were impacted by Hurricane Harvey, something like that.
Got it.
And then impacted zip codes to understand the risk associated. So in this case, you can highlight what the risk was. This was after the hurricane.
Yes.
So the risk probably wouldn't be resulting from the hurricane directly. You want to know what the risk was, right? Is it human lives, or is this? So I'm not familiar with finance. By risk report,
correct.
What are you reporting on?
So I specifically worked in the line of business that provided loans to small businesses. Okay. So the risk for the bank was A, how many new applications belong to this area? B, how many existing loans that are here that belong to this area? As well as number 3 was how much real estate collateral belongs to this area, to see if that real estate collateral actually exists or not. That will give us an idea of what dollar amount are we looking at, how many people, how many impacted people are we looking at, and then what kind of aid and help are they going to need.
Okay, so what you need to do is so let's say you had someone had a loan, like a commercial loan for a mall in a zip code that was impacted by Hurricane Harvey.
Yes.
Do you work with the loan forgiveness?
Yes. So their loan payments were delayed by 3 months, 4 months, or whatever time they needed, so that they do not stress about the loan payments. Also, additional loans were approved for these businesses. So in case they need any immediate funding, the bank was able to provide that to our customer. and it also offered loans to close to 130 homeowners who needed basically funding to start a new life or fix their existing residential situation.
I see. Okay, so it's both existing loan forgiveness and then also
new
extending
loans.
them, new loans. Yeah. Okay, and you want to analyze what the risk was, like what the impact to the bank is as a result of doing this.
Yes. So the first part was just to get the magnitude of the impact. Like, what is it? What is it that we're looking at? Based on what is the magnitude of this impact, then make the decision, what is it that bank can offer to these customers?
Okay. Okay. So this is more of like you want to service the customer rather than
yes.
How
Absolutely.
much you want to limit the impact on the bank.
Correct. Yes. No, absolutely. This was like a terrible natural disaster. Like the bank definitely wanted to go out of its way to be of service.
Okay. So what was the benefit of the bank as a result of doing this?
Customer satisfaction, gaining trust from the customer, because we are not doing business for that quarter or that year. This is years and years of partnership that we would like to continue with our customer beyond this terrible natural disaster situation. So it definitely gained some great relationship with our customer. Also, JP Morgan Chase Bank got very good press after this, and it resulted in good public relations.
Okay. All right, that's great. So, my follow-up question: Are these in your results?
I just wrote results like this.
Okay, the data is good. Okay.
Okay.
Love seeing data. Definitely good to keep that in. I would highlight the dollar values, the number of customers, and also the time extension of grace period. All that's fine, but we need to know what this resulted in. Like, what was the end result here? And it's user trust, customer satisfaction, customer obsession, good press. So all those are like the driving home parts, right? So right now it's like if for a golf analogy, right? You had a good swing, the ball arced, but it needs to land in the hole. That's all you got to do. Have that last part, detail that out, and make sure that it is directly handed to the interviewer. Okay, so that's for results. Very much like it. The action here, zip code utilized, origination, what stages, the collaterals, exposure industries. Okay, this is fine. It's just a whole slew of what you did. I would say I would start off by saying that you had to break down the problem.
Okay.
Because you were given an obscure task, saying that you had to produce risk analysis reports for several impacted zip codes. Right, a zip code is not a person; it's not a business. It's just a plot of land on a map. So just say like how you wanted to break it down and what your thought process was there.
Okay.
Then another thing is if you collaborated with other people, if let's say you need to reach out to other people, maybe people from your team, people from different departments, let me know what you did. Another thing is if there were any bumps along the process, like what kind of challenges you ran into in the middle as you were acting upon your task. what were the challenges and how did you overcome them?
Got it. So as far as collaboration with other departments, I think the number one collaboration was with the sales team, because they were the one who were sort of giving us the live data of the zip codes. The other challenge was it was sort of a pressure situation, because the turnaround time was very slim, which is understandable because they wanted to make quick decisions within the time frame of a day. So just an overall pressure situation to make sure we are producing the right numbers to constantly check the data. And the sales team would basically was throwing numbers, throwing zip codes at us as they were getting it. So it was not like this fixed list of like, hey, here are these 25 zip codes. It was just like, it's 25, now it's 30, now it's 60. Wait, make that 50. So it was this constantly edited data that was coming our way. Just so that sort of added to the overall pressure of the situation. As far as collaborating with other departments, I collaborated. So I was specifically representing the data for small businesses, but then I was also collaborating with a credit card team and home loan team, because we wanted to put together like a comprehensive deck, which will just all in one provide one-stop information for the senior leadership, so they don't have to go every other places to get the same information with other line of businesses. So to make sure we are in collaboration with them and the results, so no one party is not waiting for the other party. We were constantly updating each other as to at what stage of the process we are at, so we can together and quickly turn this around and present it to the senior leadership. So, okay.
Just be sure to write all that down.
Yes.
What the challenges were, who you collaborated with, and what it was specifically that you did. They want to see definitely that, I'd say, like for among all tasks, all roles, being able to analyze and being able to break down your problem into smaller problems is something that they really want to see, something that they enjoy talking about.
Okay.
Okay, so now let's go to task. Response time 25 hours. Okay. Task looks fine. And I'd say for situation, also include who your users are.
Okay.
So in this case, it wasn't just the people that live in the zip codes and where Hurricane Harvey hit. This is also like the businesses that are there.
Got it. Okay. Do I also mention the internal users?
What are internal users in this case?
Basically, the teams that I'm collaborating with, the sales team, as well as the senior leadership, like the MDs and the EDs that I'm updating with this information.
Oh, okay. So like the people that you work with.
Yeah.
That could be mentioned as well if it's significant. So the question was something that you had to do. So it might not be necessary to include all that. But if this was something that you had to deliver to collaborate with other people on, then it would be something that's worth putting in.
Okay.
Just be sure to provide enough context so that the interviewer understands and the impact of what you're doing.
Okay.
So context, provide context to the action so that it seems like what you do is more impactful.
Okay.
If you just went into the action, or if you just had a little bit of context, then the action might not seem as significant.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Beyond that, yeah, this looks good. Cool. And let's move on to the next one here.
Okay, let's see. Hold on.
Fell behind or missed a deadline on a project. How do you respond? Okay, so like before, once again, what's the leadership principle here?
Huh. Is it again bias for action?
Well, if you fell behind or missed a deadline, then it'd be inaction.
Okay. That's true. Ownership?
Ownership, huh? What about this makes you think ownership? Just look at the question here. Don't look at the answer.
Fell behind, missed the deadline. All right, a lot.
Not too sure about all right a lot. Because when you're all right a lot, it'd be something about like having good judgment skills. And or having a lot of subject matter expertise.
Okay.
So what we want here is earn trust, and it's a little difficult here for this kind of question, but because this doesn't directly correlate with a leadership principle. Like if I just asked you, hey, can I trust you? Right? Dipali, can I trust you? What would your answer be?
Yeah,
you would definitely say yes, right? Unless you're crazy. Right. So I can't, for earn trust, if I'm going to ask you if you earn trust or not, I can't directly ask you. For bias for action, I could tell you like, hey, tell me something that you delivered on a tight deadline with, which is something that you've biased for action on. But for trust, for something where it's more about the person to person relationship, you can fib that. You can just say that hey, yeah, you can trust me. Just trust me. They can't. It's not a really good question to ask. In this case, they want to ask you this kind of question, make you uncomfortable, so that they can ping you on how honest you are and how candid you can speak on yourself or others. And Amazon people like this a lot because they know that if they can get you to speak honestly, then you can communicate well with your peers. And if you communicate well with your peers, then you can work better as a team. So this is for earn trust. If it's anything that involves you speaking about things that maybe don't make you portray you in the best light, then most likely it's earned trust. Or something that might portray your peers in not the best light. That's also earned trust.
Okay. The example, I have a better example, but I do not have it written. Do you want me to narrate it to you?
Sure.
In response to this answer. Okay.
Just verbally is fine.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Just verbally is fine. You don't have to.
Oh, verbally is fine. Down. Cool. All right. So as I have mentioned earlier, I currently work for a university, and one of my responsibility there is to manage federal funding. For federal funding, we have research awards that are received by my customers, which are the faculty at the university. And my responsibility is to manage the accounts, the federal accounts for for these awards. This particular incident happened on, and I know this date because this federal funding is very, very time sensitive. So you can receive an award of $500,000 for 3 years to do a specific research. If you think you cannot do this in 3 years period, you have to file a formal request of extension, and the federal agency, in this case, National Science Foundation, will extend your award by 1 year. What happened in this particular case was this award was expiring on 31st of July. It was a Friday. That award was expiring, and it somehow fell out of my radar. Well, it was my bad. It was a mistake. It fell off my radar to alert this specific professor, who should also have this information. But again, I take full responsibility to alert this specific professor that his award of $500,000 actually had a balance of $100,000 that he had not spent. And all this funding was going to expire on 31st of July. In order to file an extension, you have to contact the agencies 45 days in advance. And clearly, it was 31st of July, and that award was expiring at the end of that day. It was a terrible mistake at my part, and I was petrified that $100,000 will be lost because I mean, I lost track of it, or it basically dropped off my radar. As it happens, this was summertime, and because university, it's a very seasonal cycle. Generally, all these professors are out doing research. They are out on the field. Nobody's available. I was not able to reach out to the professor to let him know, to alert him of the situation. My next best option was I scanned through all the award documents to find every possible 1-800 number, every possible website where I could file a ticket. And I also managed to get hold of the program officer in National Science Foundation and tried to call him, did not get him on phone, wrote him this big email saying there was an accounting issue that sort of misinformed the professor about the available funding and the end date of this award. It's a question of $100,000. What can I do to extend this award? My customer, who is the professor, is not at fault here. It is the accounting department. It is our area. It is our responsibility that has caused this big issue. So I basically used every avenue and every channel to let the agencies know before. I know we were supposed to file it before 45 days. That did not happen. Unfortunately, it was basically a matter of few hours because Friday, that was the last, I think it was 29th. Yeah, 29th of July, 31st was the weekend. So by the time I came back on Monday, the award would have expired. The funds would have just gone. So I basically attempted every single avenue to make sure the money is saved. I happened to have the cell phone of this professor and left a message to him with regards to this issue. And he luckily contacted me at the end of the day, he was not happy. He was not happy with me, and he was fairly panicked about losing, because you have to understand, they go through a very, very difficult competitive process to secure this kind of funding. It's not easy money for them. And for them to lose 1/5 of the portion of this funding was very, very unfortunate. The potential of losing 1/5 of this funding would have been very unfortunate. He was not too pleased with me, but he understood the situation. I also requested him to basically email the program officer and contact the program officer and repeat the narrative that I am repeating, so that if somebody goes out and check the dates, at least we were within the award period to request for the extension and did not come after the fact that the award had expired. The good news was, come August 1st, I received an email communication from the program officer. The award had been extended for a year. So that made me take a breath of relief. We did not lose the $100,000. And then going forward, I made a Tableau report alert, which would start reminding me twice a month of all the upcoming awards that are going to expire in next 6 months, as well as what is the balance on these awards. So if there is anything under $5,000, I can leave it alone. But if there is a substantial balance left on these awards and they are expiring in next 6 months, I will have enough report and enough pinging on my end so that going forward, this kind of issue does not recur. We do not leave any federal funding money on the table. That's
Okay.
it.
Okay. This might be a silly question to ask, but why is there a deadline?
Oh, the deadline, because Harry, when any federal agency approves your research funding and you get money, think of it as like a dated gift card. Like you have an exact period of performance. By the end of it, you need to produce results. So say you are saying, I need $500,000 to study ferns at Amazon, the rainforest. And then at the end of it, I will share my research paper with the agency. And for that, you are given 3 years. So it definitely is very deadline driven. You cannot say, I will do this for the rest of my life. No, it is very deadline driven.
I see. Okay. And then is there any chance that the funding can pool over to the next round?
So it can be extended 2 times, 1 year and 1 year. After that, it just goes back to the state. Nobody gets that money. It's just gone.
I see.
Yeah.
How many people can enjoy these funds?
Wow.
Typically,
how many?
Rough estimate.
How many people can get access to this kind of funding? Is that your question?
Yes.
I want to say out of thousands of applications, I would say there is like a 2 to 3% rate of success with federal funding awards. It is very, very slim. It's a very, very aggressively competitive program.
Among the applicants?
Okay. Yeah.
How many people get the fund though?
So it depends. So there is like it is very deeply categorized. So what discipline are you coming from? So say you are coming from botany, so you come in a pool. Now within botany, what do you represent? Are you coming from a private institution? Are you coming from a public institution? What region of the country you're coming from? So that they make sure the funding is distributed evenly among the various geographies in the country, and also among the variety of institutions among the country. So, and between that, in this specific case, and then you have to qualify enough to have a unique subject of research. If this has been done before, you don't even qualify to run the race. You have to come up with a unique subject. So I want to say again, like I want to say probably close to, if you want to get a ballpark, say 500 people must have applied for this kind of funding, and perhaps like 10 people got it.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, it's definitely good to know. And this is for a single college campus or single university, right?
This is a small private college campus, yes. If it's a bigger university, it's much more aggressive.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, it's good to know that the value changes depending on which university or which size of your scale of university in terms of size. I think those are good things to note, and those are also things that the interviewer may note as well. It's like the amount of people who might have been impacted. In this case, up to 10 people, not too bad. But for each person, it would mean like they're having to fund their project, or losing the funding for their project, which would put a dent into maybe their research or so whatever field of study they're doing. Yeah, maybe this would definitely work for earned trust. And it's good to claim ownership and take responsibility for this, as well as building measures to avoid this from happening again. You could also add that since then, there have been no such related incidents. And let's say, I'm guessing you aren't the only person that worked on the financial student aid or student. Forgot the correct
research,
terminology.
The fund.
Okay, you aren't the only person that works on this, correct?
No, I am almost from the finance side of things. I am the keeper of things. It's me.
Okay, it's just you.
It's just me.
And that was your previous role?
No, this is my current role. It is my current role. But I mean, gotcha. I don't want to say it. The professor is equally responsible for his funds, but again, I could have stopped it from happening. So I think I'd rather. I want to show my responsibility.
Okay, that's good. And then if you say like, I'm guessing since you're here that you're seeking a different position, you could say like, currently, I made sure to leave this as a high alert item for the next person who will assume my role after I leave.
Oh, yeah.
Or something like that. It's just good to note. It shows that you still care about whatever you're working on, even as you're about to leave, and that this is a lesson that you really have ingested as like a core learning experience. Cool.
Was my overall narration okay? Am I going in the right direction?
Yep, I definitely noticed that you added additional context. I definitely noticed also that you described who the impacted parties are and who you have worked with. So like the professor, the amount of funding data-wise, the time limit that was imposed. Those are good to have, and definitely it was descriptive in that regard. I only had 2 questions to ask you, which is a good thing, because it meant that everything else was pretty fairly described in the detail that I can understand the full scope, or to my full knowledge, the full scope of what your anecdotal evidence is.
My examples do not belong to like the usual examples from a tech company. Is that good or bad, or just okay?
There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
I very much would prefer to have experience outside of tech, because after a while, things get so integrated that people who are in tech sort of lose track of the bigger picture and need some additional data from the outside to recontextualize themselves and leave themselves up to date. I think there's this talk, there's this thought process here. It's like inner thoughts versus outer thoughts, or inner ideas versus outer ideas. Yeah, and definitely for PM roles, leadership roles, having outside knowledge would actually be an advantage.
Got it. Okay. Oh, what else? Yeah, this was, if you want to continue.
Sure.
Looking at this document. Or
Sure. How do you negotiate scope/requirements across teams? It's fairly open-ended here. This is a good question, and in the idea that you can dissect this problem and sort of discuss it a little bit more so that you can get a better sense of what they're asking.
Okay, so basically in turn ask the interviewer this question, like
if you say like how you negotiate scope or such requirements across teams, you could say, is this for my current position or is this for a specific position you had in mind? Then for scope/requirements, you'd say, is this for delivering a new feature? Is this for um, um, is this for internally cleaning up, resolving debt? This is all for like tech stuff. I'm not sure how scope/requirements will work for in the world of finance here. Another thing would be um, the term negotiate, right? Is this something that requires cost in terms of developer effort? Is this a negotiation in terms of responsibility? Is of a product? Is this negotiation in terms of what sort of customer features you're willing to include/disinclude? This is a very open-ended question, and I would definitely want to ping the interviewer in a sense of understanding what would be a good way to answer this.
Okay. Okay. I think have a good answer on negotiation and scope requirement across team. I have one written here, or I could narrate one to you.
I can. I'm fine for either. Before we do that, can you think of a couple leadership principles?
Oh, here. Okay. I think when it comes to negotiation, there are two things like trust and frugality.
How frugality?
Because, well, yeah, hold on. How frugality? Because you want to spend less resources, and someone is not happy if there is a lack of resources, means there is something is giving. So is it more efforts? Am I negotiating in exchange of resources? Do you spend more efforts? So yeah.
Okay. That works. But if it's hard, but my concern for that is you painting yourself in a corner here, because now you have to filter your examples to instances in which you saved costs, right? And you negotiate the side of decreasing your scope. However, let's say you wanted to design a feature and you really wanted that customer satisfaction credit. In that case, maybe if you wanted more features, and you were having to negotiate against an opposing party who wanted to limit the feature scope, then that would be insist on high standards.
So, well, I think my example is such where I am not downgrading on features, and it's sort of, I feel like it's a win with the negotiation. I think that's where I'm going with it. It's a completely different,
Okay.
It's a different example.
Okay.
So,
and this would be a win for who?
For my customer.
For your customer. Okay. Then this could be customer obsession.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
This is a multi-tiered sort of question, because there's a lot of different ways that you can approach this.
Okay.
So best case would be to just pick one and go with it.
Harry, how important do you think is when they ask me the question, do I go down like a mental list of leadership principles, or do I just roll with the answer that I think fits the best?
Pick the answer, or go with the leadership principle. Then after you find the leadership principle, think about which example would fit that leadership principle.
Got it. Okay. So leadership principle first. Go with that first.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Is this the example that you wanted to under brainstorm? Is that the example that you want to answer this question with?
No, actually, I think I have a better example that I would like to narrate.
Okay. Is it verbally narrated?
Yes. Is that okay?
Sure. Let's hear it.
Cool. So, as like I mentioned, currently I am responsible for the federal funds that are received from the government to the college for federal awards. Something to know about federal funding is any institution that receives the federal award. So for instance, you are a professor and you have received $100,000 to conduct a certain research. It is mandatory for whatever institution that is hosting you, where you're working, that institution gets an indirect cost cut on that award. So I am currently working at Colgate University. You are a professor here. You receive $100,000. My current indirect cost rate is 35%. So the university gets $35,000 out of your $100,000. It is not something that the university or the college is forcing. It is a federal rule where whoever is your host gets that specific indirect cost percentage. The indirect cost rate especially is negotiated with the federal funding agency. Our last indirect cost rate was negotiated at 35%. It was up for renewal in the year 2022. The way indirect cost rate is negotiated is we basically hire a consultant who looks at your entire expenses for the previous fiscal year, see how you're spending money with federal awards, and then recommends an ideal indirect cost rate to the university so you don't lose money. And when I say you don't lose money, the purpose of indirect cost is you're a professor doing research on the campus. You're using electricity, you're using the lab, you're using resources that exist on this campus. And it's sort of university's way of charging you to conduct this research. Again, it is not our idea. It is a federal rule that has been formed that any federal award, indirect cost is part of that federal award. So when the negotiations started happening for the year 2022, and then this indirect cost is valid for next 5 years, the consultant came back with the recommendation that you should have an indirect cost rate of 47%. That is a huge jump from 35% to 47%. Now, if you are a professor and you go through this entire difficult competitive process of acquiring an award for, let's for simplicity's sake, say $100,000, you have to understand the university will take $47,000 from you, which originally, according to the old rate, it was charging you $35,000. There was a huge uproar in our faculty community when they found out the new indirect cost rate that potentially has been proposed to be 47%. Me being the primary server of the faculty community I serve, they are my customers, I felt terrible. I thought, these people are serving sciences, these people are doing the research, these people should not be paying such a high rate. I completely understand this number is coming after calculations that have been done against the expenses of the university. I was also working with my manager, who's the Associate VP of Finance, who was absolutely in favor of raising the indirect cost rate. And then I was also working with the professors who were absolutely not in favor of raising the indirect cost rate. And I was trying to convince my boss that we are not in the business of research awards. We are in the business, well, not really in the business, we are a nonprofit institution. But the fact is, our institution exists because we are providing education to the students. They are the ultimate primary customers of this institution. And then it is the professors who make this possible. Any research that they conduct, they are mostly required to hire students in that research, because research is not just a standalone research, but while they are in an educational institute, the students also, it is part of their educational experience to participate in these research and learn more things that they have come here to learn about. So, but it just so very interestingly happened that the associate VP, my boss, she just started in this position. So now there was also sort of a power play in place where she saw this as her first move on campus, where she was very hesitant to come in and just directly compromise. She was like, well, one rate has been proposed and I instantly go down more than 10%. She was like, at least give me 38%, because there has to be some rate hike in this indirect cost portion of a federal award. Again, I spoke with the faculty and they were not having it. They were extremely upset about this. They almost indicated that we are being penalized to seek research awards that we would like to conduct. And truly that is not the case, because the fact is they don't truly receive any additional incentive when they are receiving these awards, apart from honestly the more work they take on. So there is no incentive waiting on the other side for them to request for these awards, to work on these awards, apart from, of course, their fruitful research that they find more new findings about. So I did a couple of things. One, I put together some research documents to see what other universities are doing. I happen to be a part of a lot of listservs, because that is a very common thing to do in higher education. Like colleges are mostly, we lack resources. It's just a common theme among all higher ed institutions. So what we lack in resources, we make up in collaborations. It's like a very highly collaborative society. You would never see this in the corporate world where one corp is talking to another corp. But in higher education, it's very common to share information, to share knowledge, to share resources. So I reached out to these listservs to get an idea what is the indirect cost rate at their end. So I was able to put together a list of close to 50 colleges and see what is the indirect cost rate. And the average rate came out to be 42%, which was significantly higher than what we are charging. So I wanted to show this to my faculty community to make them understand that even if we stick to our original rate, they need to understand that the institution will be going down from a significantly standard rate to accommodate their requirements. At the same time, when I showed this to my manager, she was like, of course, we cannot go down significantly in such a percentage. The other thing that I also did was I also looked at colleges that are more of our scale, because the 50 colleges, a lot of them were private institutions, public institutions, a lot of students, less students. It was just essentially a study of indirect cost rate. But then the second thing that I did was looked at, there is something called New York 6. So these are like 6 small liberal art colleges that collaborate together and have like similar number of students, similar number of professor capacity. So that also gives you like a better handle on if you're looking at a similar size institution to see what is the average rate going there. And again, when I looked at their indirect cost rate, their average came out to be close to 39%. Again, we are at 35%, remember. So we are much, much lower at this point. And that, again, I provided that information to the faculty community to help them understand that 35 is a very, very low percent. Of course, I am in their favor. I'm on their side because I serve them directly. But then I show this to my manager, who is, again, not very happy because she's like, this is a difficult negotiation. I am not willing to compromise. The third thing that I came up with is, so this 35% indirect rate that we charge, out of this 35%, so say $35,000 comes as an indirect cost in a $100,000 award, 30% out of that portion is kicked back in the research fund. And the remaining 70% goes to universities' funding, like university pot of money, which we, of course, use it around the university. So the fact is, out of that 35%, 30% is kicked back into more research, is what we were doing until now. So the third proposal that I presented to my manager was, instead of kicking back 30% back in the university research pot, what we can do is we can only kick 20%. So you still get a rate hike internally without raising the 35% that indirect rate that the faculty is currently being charged. So you still get more money, which is coming to your unrestricted fund, which is essentially the university pot of money, but then less money will be contributed towards the research pot, and somebody has to be okay with it. So I also negotiated with the dean of faculty, which is sort of like the head of faculty, and I tried to say, well, we will not raise the indirect cost rate, but then the kickback that you receive from the indirect cost will go down, and they were okay with it. So we finally came to a consensus where the indirect cost rate remained the same, but then at the same time, we started getting a bigger share of this indirect cost rate. And then I think the faculty was happy, my manager was happy, and we were able to negotiate this new indirect cost with the federal government. And at least for the next 5 years, there is peace on campus with this indirect cost rate. I don't know what will happen after that. That's it.
Okay. That's a very interesting story.
Yeah.
And it really gains a lot of insight into the academic world and how different things are.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. It's like a really interesting thing to note about, and it also very much highlights the main address, which is, like put the customer first, put the consumer first. Well, in this case here, you identify who your customer is and the steps needed in order to get there. which is good. It's you said before, like, you're not a for-profit college. You everything you do must be in the benefit of the student, um, um, and that definitely highlights the customer obsession part, and it shows your like philosophical viewpoint as well, right? Your emphasis on education, stuff like that. That's very good. You're working with at Amazon or a big tech company. You're working with people who have some degree of education there, so it's definitely a good thing to emphasize on, and I would be sure to emphasize that as much as I can.
Okay.
One other thing is probably in the case of the increase in rate, the severity of the outcome needs additional reinforcement.
Okay.
And then also probably a little bit more emphasis on chain of command here. Like, what is something that you are responsible for that you cannot manage, or what is something that you manage? What is something that you're responsible for, and what are some things that you just can't touch, regardless of how things are?
Got it.
And who is responsible for touching what, right? Because it sounds like, if you were allowed to just reset rates down to 35%, then you would have much more of an enjoyable experience. And then another thing that the interviewer may ask is, another thing the interviewer might ask here would be, I just lost my train of thought for a second. It's just a lot of moving pieces here that are good. It might ask like how long the entire negotiation took.
Yeah.
Length of time, and they might also ask what were the other people's viewpoints. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. What were the other people so the people who are controlling the rate increase, Colgate University administrations, maybe a dean. What were their thoughts on it? Okay. I'm not too sure about the entire scope of finance within academia, but definitely part of negotiation is understanding what the other person's thinking, and then also being able to reach a compromise to accommodate their thoughts. That's a very broad, general way of describing negotiation, but it's definitely something that they will ask for, to know if you know what they were thinking.
Okay.
So that's all from me. Cool. Closing remark here would be, the interviewer has a couple of things that they would write down. And just so you know, the people who are interviewing you, they're not professional interviewers. They're people that work at Amazon, that also take up the responsibility of expanding their headcount as well. So that being said, they have other things to do in their life besides listening to people's interviews and then making sure that the people they hire are up to par. So they might not be able to remember all the details. Their only source of reliable information would probably come from their notes. So their notes would be a question, like what question they asked. They would also ask. They would also put down the response, So what the interview candidate, how they responded to the answer. And then after the interview is over, they would go back to the question they asked, go back to the response, and they'd add an analysis section. So like what this person exhibited, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, do I support hire or not, any red flags, so on and so forth. So that's the majority of what they have, right? The question, response, and analysis. So obviously their analysis is heavily dependent on their response that they write down. And after that, all three of those items get sent to a hiring committee who compiles a list of all the people that you talk to and takes their notes, reads through them, and says, hey, I think this person should get an offer, or hey, I think this person isn't ready yet. So in the long story short, what I'm trying to say here is that the interviewer the only control that the interviewer has in whether or not you as the candidate gets the offer or not is how well they write, how well they take notes of you. That's the one thing they can control. The rest is just up to the hiring committee, to the budget, up to how well the interviewer wrote the notes and what the note analysis is. Sometimes, depending on your interviewer, you might get someone who writes very sparse notes and says, I support hire, but then they would read it and they say, why? And then they would throw that away, right? In this case, even though you had a really good example, you had a really good candidate, just by having a bad interviewer or an interviewer that didn't write any notes, the hiring committee might not see you as strong of a candidate as you really are. So the only thing you can control, once again, are how well the interviewer takes notes. In order to service that the best and hedge your efforts the best, the way you should portray your information should be such that it's easy to take notes with.
Okay.
So that's the one thing I have to say. And most people, when they do an interview, they might not worry about that. They don't worry about that. They only focus on answering the questions to the best of their ability. I would think that the best ability that you would answer the question correlates to the best way that they would receive the information. And that would translate to the best ability of you answering the question. So make sure that they're digestible, make sure that they're easy to follow. If you're not sure that it is easy to follow or not, write them down yourself, or take a recording of yourself saying it. Then the next day, listen to that recording, try to take notes of it, pretend that you're the interviewer of your own self. And if the notes that you wrote down as a result of you saying your story are coherent, then it means you're at a good spot. If you feel like they need more work, then readdress the verbal part.
Got it.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I have for you. Do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. The only thing is, I understand I have booked a wrong interview. Should I? So I have to do like a leadership interview for Amazon. Is that what I should do?
For a program manager, yes.
Leadership. Okay.
Yes. For a technical program manager, IC is also probably okay. But for a program manager, definitely, it's a leadership position. I would at least do a leadership only, just so that you have a better sense of what they would ask specifically. I personally have not interviewed anyone for a leadership position, so the stuff I get might be a little bit too general or a little too biased towards tech.
Okay, I will do that. Do you think I'm on the right track, Harry? You think I will be all right? Like, I'll be presentable? I don't know if
you have good examples. Examples are definitely good. It's just a few minor tweaks in terms of your written examples here. I'd say just remember to think about leadership principles, and because that's what they will focus on. So there's no point in you not deviating from that. And just establish more focus. Make your notes more concise.
More concise. Sounds good. Okay, I can do that. All right. Well, I appreciate you taking time and talking to me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to help.